So two people with equal skill set and capability come up on an opportunity. One person believes they can do it. The other person believes they can't. What do you think happens? Over the years, as I've been in my career, I have watched and observed as some people go through their careers much faster and much farther than others. And I've asked myself over and over, why is this? In the workplace, it's slightly different than in college. GPA is a very good indication of a person's ability to learn and their commitment to a worthy life goal. But in the workplace, there's some critical skills that are required. And in this transition between the classroom and the cubicle, the games and the rules change, and confidence became a critical skill. Competence without the confidence behind it to fuel it and back it and drive it ultimately leads to inaction. And cumulative inaction leads to slower progress and an inability to get and reach the goals that we want for both our life and our career. What I've observed is that it isn't really the difference in capability or skill set that often makes the difference. It's the belief that we can't do it and the choice not to try. But the good news is that that can all change. Confidence is the stuff that turns thought into action. The bottom one. All right, there we go. Confidence is the stuff that turns thought into action. And there's three very important components to that. It's belief, it's courage, and it's determination. Believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you. When I graduated from college, the first job that I got was as a technician on night shift working in a factory. When my probation period was over, I decided to schedule a meeting with the big boss. He was an engineering department manager and he was on office shift. It took a bit of courage to schedule this meeting with this big boss. He granted me the meeting, and what I asked him is, what would it take for me to become an engineer? He asked me what school I went to, asked me what my major was, and we had some small chat, and then he said, I'm sorry, you're likely to never be an engineer. Now, that is not the response that I was expecting or wanting. And so I went home, and for a couple weeks, I was pretty down about that. And then I started saying to myself, who is this guy? Who is this guy to judge my capability and my capacity? He doesn't know me. He doesn't know all the gifts that I have inside of me. He doesn't know the drive that I have. He doesn't know how hard I would work to be an engineer. But this is my life's dream. So I started to apply for engineering jobs. And 3 months later, I started my first engineering job. Believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you. Now, sometimes the problem is not other people, but ourselves. Each of us walk around every day with a little voice inside our head. And it doesn't mean that we're crazy, but this voice is constantly interpreting the world around us. Sometimes this voice is positive, and sometimes it's negative. But that negative voice, if we let it go unchallenged, can be quite damning over time. It can lead to us feeling bad about ourselves, losing confidence, questioning our own capability. But we have the power to choose to stop that voice. And we have the power to choose to replace it with a more useful and productive thought. So going from, why is this happening to me, to, okay, not cool, but what can I do about it? Going from, this is impossible, to, okay, how do I make this possible? From, this is very difficult and it's never going to end, to, okay, it's difficult today, but tomorrow's a new day, and if I could just find my first step, then I could start to move forward. From problem talk to solution talk. From doubt and self-criticism to finding inner strength. Another great tip to battle some of these things that we say to ourselves is to add a very simple little word at the end of the statement. That word is yet. I'm not good at presenting yet. I'm not good at speaking a second language yet. Adding yet at the end of these statements really opens up the possibility that there is a different path for me if I apply myself. It takes me from being in a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move beyond it. Each of us has acted with courage, and when we've succeeded, we get a dose of confidence. The reason why I love this quote so much is that it really puts courageous people onto the same level as me. People who act with courage aren't superhuman. They don't have an absence of fear. They have fear just like me. But they choose to move beyond that fear and to leap forward. They have courage. It's critically important, I think, for all of us to really challenge our fears. Because if we don't, it's kind of like this carpet. Fear ends up being this boundary. And the life that I pursue, the goals that I pursue, the person who I want to be, it'll all be capped inside of the boundary of fear. I can only achieve my greatest potential in life, in career. I can only be who I authentically am if I can pass over that boundary and counter my fears. All my biggest dreams, all my biggest potential, everything that I can imagine is just outside of that boundary. Courage is so critically important, and it's really a mindset. When we are worried and we're thinking about how important it is for us to take a leap of courage, it's very useful for us to reflect back on a previous time where we had to engage in an act of courage and we were successful. Thinking about it, thinking about how it felt, what the circumstances were, how we made that leap, it builds up our confidence. It gives us some energy. And if we study carefully, I'm sure that most of us will find that there's actually a pattern to our success. Another great tip that coaches give their athletes is for them to close their eyes and imagine themselves winning, being successful at that thing. watching that over and over to build the confidence and the courage. The problem for many of us is that the tape playing in our mind isn't the one of us winning, it's the one of us failing. It's really hard to get courage if the tape playing in our minds is that of us failing. Which brings me to an important point, failure. I can tell you I know a lot about failure. I've taken the last shot in a basketball game when we were down by 1 point and I've missed. I've run for student body president of my school and I've lost. And for the position before the one that I currently hold, I interviewed for that level not once but twice and I failed. Now, if I'm honest with you, it hurt a bit. And some of these failures were public, so it hurt maybe even a little bit more. But other than that, nothing really negative happened from it. But through that, I was able to think about and reflect on what had happened. I was able to figure out what to study and how to apply myself differently. And through those experiences, I was able to pick myself back up and apply myself. And I learned that I actually could be successful. I learned that even a public failure wasn't fatal. And most importantly, I learned that I could win. Failure is really a state of mind. If our thought process is that failure is part of the learning process, then it helps us get the courage to try. Whenever we are trying to do something that's bigger, that's better, that's a huge stretch for us, that's going beyond the capability that we have today, there is a possibility of failure. We will make mistakes. It's absolutely guaranteed. You didn't learn how to ride a bicycle and never fall. It's guaranteed that we'll fail. But if we see it as part of the learning process, then when it happens, then we take it for what it is. And we study it, we reflect on it, and we improve ourselves on the next iteration. And this becomes a very virtuous cycle of learning, improving, and succeeding. And it builds our confidence. If our mindset, though, is that failure is not okay and that we must be perfect each and every time, then we're not going to grow ourselves or stretch ourselves too much, are we? And when we do encounter that mistake or that failure, we're going to start to question ourselves. We're going to judge ourselves, be self-critical. Why did I do that? Why was I so stupid? Why couldn't I have done that better? And this questioning, this critical questioning of ourselves, our capabilities, and our character really erodes our confidence. And it makes us less willing to take that risk the next time around. This is my mom. She's Japanese. And she grew up in a time and in an era that I can't even begin to understand. When she was getting ready to go to academic high school, her father disenrolled her and instead put her in flower arranging and painting school, because that's what proper girls did back then. She was disappointed. And years later, she met my dad, they got married, they had 2 children, and they moved to the US. And eventually, they got a divorce. And my mom found herself single in a foreign country with no education, 2 small kids, and struggling with English. My mom cleaned other people's houses. She watched other people's children until she was able to land a job in a factory, where she sewed collars and pockets on coats. She was paid by the piece. And she worked tirelessly. She skipped her breaks so that she could make more money so that we could have a little bit more at home. And then one day, the factory manager came and he said to her, "I'm going to start paying you hourly and I expect the same production." My mom was in despair. She was devastated. How was she going to get ahead in this unjust world? So she gathered her strength from I don't know where, and she started to go to school at night, and she got her high school diploma. And with that, she was able to apply to college, and she got a 2-year degree. And she became an accountant at an insurance company in the United States. And almost overnight, she changed the course of our lives, for my brother, for myself, and her. My mom is my hero. She's my role model and my inspiration. There is no circumstance, no destiny, or no fate that can hinder her firm resolve of determination. Confidence is the stuff that turns thought into action. There's really 3 important components to that. A belief in yourself, a belief that it can be done, the courage to act, and the resilient determination to see it through. You have to have all 3. That last one is critically important because life is going to throw many barriers in front of us along the way. It's not going to be easy. The good news, though, is that we can all work on improving our confidence, no matter where we are in that continuum. So I come back to the starting point. 2 people with equal skills, presented with the same opportunity. One person believes they can, one person believes they can't. What will you choose? Thank you.